in Hungary. Full respect though to Red Bull KTM for inviting Joao to their box, and I think he got a little bit of a souvenir, a signed knee slider from Pedro Acosta. That was one of 3 crashes this weekend for Pedro Acosta. A weekend here in Hungary that has promised to deliver so much, but as yet has delivered very little, Lewis, because as we mentioned, Friday and Saturday morning in particular, you certainly felt like Mark's biggest challenger was going to be Pedro Acosta.
Yeah, and as always, I feel in 2025, it comes down to qualifying for Pedro Acosta. You just saw a shot there of Hungarian motorcycle racing royalty Gabor Talmashi getting ready to head on a parade lap. You can hear the unmistakable sound behind us of the 125 bike that he won the World Championship on back in 2007. He is, as mentioned, royalty in this part of the world. In many respects, one of the reasons that motorcycle racing is so popular here in Hungary is down to that man.
Oh, this brings hairs to stand up on the back of your neck, hearing that 2-stroke singing down towards the first corner. Yeah, unfortunately, Gabor Talmashi never got the chance to, of course, race in front of his home crowd. I remember for years and years and years when he was really in his prime, in his pomp, the Hungarian fans used to go in there tens of thousands to the Czech Grand Prix in Brno. There was probably at one stage more Hungarian fans in Brno than there were Czech fans. Such was the popularity of Gabor Talmashi. A special moment for him as he gets to do the parade lap here. A special Saturday, as we mentioned, for VR46 Racing. Fabio Di Gianantonio second, Frankie Morbidelli third. A good day for those 2 Italians. A dreadful day once again for another high-profile Italian, Pecco Bagnaia. You can't sugarcoat it. A dreadful weekend all around for the 28-year-old on the factory Ducati, who limped home at the checker flag at the end of that 13-lap sprint. 13th place, almost 15 seconds behind his teammate Marc Marquez. I'm sure they're going to run with that the sort of radical new setup on the GP25 once again this afternoon. But Bagnaia in a lot of bother, Lewis.
And it feels like Bagnaia is quite keen to see the back of Balaton Park, although he is certainly not going to give up. That is just not in his nature. But it was another tough moment for him this morning. He didn't look too happy either in the morning warm-up session. This was the battle between the VR46 Ducatis yesterday over second and third, and Di Gianantonio winning that early arm wrestle on the first lap of the sprint, and that was a crucial battle really, because that secured him second place. Morbidelli accepting in the end that he didn't have the pace to go with either his teammate nor Marc Marquez over the 13-lap distance, but a 2-3 nonetheless for VR46, and each of them taking their second sprint podiums of the season.
Yeah, and that will be a big fillip as far as Di Gianantonio is concerned, because the 26-year-old has struggled for form of late, particularly on Sundays. At DNF when he was second and very well placed, of course, in the German Grand Prix at the Saxon Ring pre-summer break. A real average return to form, or return to action after our holidays in Brno when he was 16th, and then of course he was out of contention with a barbecue exit with a big spectacular engine failure in Spielberg. So no points in the last 3 Grand Prix for Digia. No points in the sprint yesterday for Bagnaia, and this was adding to his woes in this morning's warm-up session. He'd already had his number 1 bike go kaput with a gearbox issue. This was on his second bike when he botched the practice start, and it's all just starting to boil to the surface, isn't it? That anger and frustration, which he's normally so adept at hiding, so good at masking. Well, you just get a sense there he's not a rider that sort of tends to lose his cool publicly, but yeah, these seemingly endless list of problems look like they are starting to get on top of Bagnaia.
Fist nearly went through the screen of his Ducati this morning. He already had some issues on his bike at the start of that session. We understand it was some sort of gearbox issue on that Ducati, and then, as you saw there, he couldn't get the bike off the line either when he practiced a start. And of course we only have to go back to last weekend for Bagnaia having problems off the line and dropping way down the field in the Austrian Grand Prix sprint.
Well, he's broken records and set milestones galore, hasn't he, in his Grand Prix career? There's another one, the first rider ever to win 6 successive MotoGP races for 2 different manufacturers. Of course, he was the talisman for HRC for so many years, and now he is the undisputed A-list star inside the factory Ducati garage. There was an excellent sprint yesterday for our reigning world champion Jorge Martin, who it seems week by week, day by day, session by session, is really coming to terms with that factory at Aprilia. He excelled in that 13-lap sprint yesterday, did the Martinator, starting from a worst ever grid position in MotoGP, down in 17th place, but he fought his way through to 9th. It was a battle that he had with Pedro Acosta, which saw Acosta sort of get too impatient, and he crashed out of contention. So a first sprint point of the season as far as Martin is concerned. Work to do today, they're coming from 17. I think another top 10, a double top 10, will represent more than a weekend's solid work here for the Spaniard.
Well, if he's looking for some good news, he's already had some, because he's been promoted to 16th on the grid today with Jack Miller's 3-place grid penalty. 2 riders dropping 3 places on the grid from where they started the sprint yesterday. They are Jack Miller, as mentioned, back to 17th, and Alex Marquez, second in the World Championship, of course, who qualified down in 11th, picked up a 3-place grid penalty in the same incident when both Alex Marquez and Jack Miller got in the way of Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, we also have Enea Bastianini and Fabio Quartararo with 2 and 1 long lap penalties respectively to serve from the second row.
Yeah, penalties galore so far this weekend. Fabio Quartararo for his first offence. Nobody needs to tell Fabio that he got it all wrong on the inside run down to that tight first corner. Dangerous situation on the opening lap. First defence. The outcome will be a long lap penalty trip for Fabio in this Grand Prix. There he is on the left-hand side of your picture, starting from the back of the second row in 6th place. A good launch away, wasn't it, as Fabio is having a look at this himself now at the replay on the dirty line. As soon as he squeezed a handful of brake, he was out of control on that Yamaha. So fortunate not to take out both the Gian Antonio and Bezzecchi. He's having a real good laugh at it right now. He said as soon as he saw the Gian Antonio cutting to the inside line, which of course the Italian was perfectly entitled to do, Fabio would just release the brakes and started praying. Unfortunately, the rider he did make contact with was Enea Bastianini. As he said, just that dirty inside line, he realised he was in a spot of bother, released the brakes, and it was just hope for the best. Marc Marquez was also almost caught up in that early melee. So a long lap penalty coming the way of Fabio in this Grand Prix.
Martin could hear the Yamaha whistling behind him as he rounded turn 1, blissfully unaware of just how much chaos has been caused behind him. As we said yesterday, though, Fabio Quartararo really not that kind of rider, doesn't usually get involved in those kind of incidents, but he does pay the price in the form of a long lap penalty today. And you'd think the long lap penalty he'll serve, and the 2 that Enea Bastianini is going to have to serve, because he was on a second defence for causing an accident, should play to the hands of Fabian Aldeguer there, who you saw on screens. The riders on row 3 of the grid, Acosta, Aldeguer and Luca Marini, of course, came through to 4th place in the sprint yesterday, will surely be straight ahead of those 2 riders up ahead of them, a row ahead of them on the grid with long lap penalties, so perhaps they won't need to be quite so aggressive on the opening lap.
Honda upgrades are working a treat, aren't they, right now, as far as Luca Marini and Joan Mir are concerned. Electronics tweaks and some aero improvements in Spielberg, and now a new chassis which was also rolled out in Austria, was raced by both Marini and Mir in yesterday's sprint. 28-year-old Italian Luca Marini, that was his best sprint since Qatar 2023, certainly head and shoulders his best sprint for Honda. And after all of his recent woes, Joan Mir really has started to hit some top form again. 6 in the Grand Prix in Spielberg last time out, 6 over the line in that sprint yesterday. There's confirmation on your screens of Alex Marquez's incoming penalty, slow on line during practice. This was his melee with Miller and Bagnaia.
Yeah, he was already unhappy with Fabio Di Gianantonio before this unfolded, and as he approaches turn 1 here, he begins to gesticulate in the direction. He's already shaking his head, look, gesticulating at Fabio Di Gianantonio, then at Jack Miller, who comes up alongside him, and they both get in the way of Pecco Bagnaia. So Pedro Acosta then goes from 7th place on the grid, and with riders who are serving long lap penalties up ahead of him, surely an opportunity to move forwards. Let's get some pre-race thoughts from his team boss, Aki Ayo joins Jack.
Yeah, it does indeed. This feels like a huge opportunity for Pedro to salvage something from a weekend that on Friday, Aki, looked incredibly promising, with a couple of riders on that second row having to do long lap penalties. What are the tactics going to be in the opening laps?
Yes, of course, there is some, let's say, penalty for Enea and everything, which is a little bit, let's say, confusing our plans. But of course, the whole weekend has been positive. yesterday. Really shame. So we hope at least a bit better luck today for the first corners, for the first lap, and I think there is potential for really good results.
If you come away from this weekend without a podium finish, will that feel like a missed opportunity?
It's too early to talk about this now. Let's do the race and see what we can do. But as I repeat so many times, important is this general improvement and trend to get closer and closer to the top.
Pedro,
that's the point.
Pedro mentioned yesterday in that qualifying crash he lost a set of front forks that he felt were giving him a little bit more feeling, and the bike felt a little bit different in the sprint. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, there is some different specs what we have played a little bit in the last races, and of course, rider always miss some part what it's not available now. The same part is again available in the next race, but I don't think that's the key point now. That for sure, more important is to survive well from the first corners and first lap and have a solid race.
Thanks, Aki. Good luck.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Aki Ayo. Yeah, Pedro Acosta, how big an opportunity has he missed? Well, ultimately be able to answer that in around about an hour and a half's time, because we haven't had the 26 lap Grand Prix yet, and he might still be able to recover the situation, but it certainly felt from Friday that he had pace to be starting a little bit higher on the grid than 7th place, and of course by starting 7th it did put him on the outside in the middle of all those early problems. Let's get an update from a technical point of view and rejoin Jack.
Yeah, just a very small thing that I've noticed on both Pedro Acosta and Brad Binder's machine. They've been jumping about throughout the course of the weekend, but they are going to race them. A lot of you at home will know about the Stegosaurus wings on the rear of the bike. Well, both Pedro and Brad for this one have got slightly bigger ones. They've almost doubled in size, which obviously is going to, I would imagine, hope to offer just a little bit more traction under braking. So they have been jumping about all weekend, all 4 bikes actually, some trying them, then deciding to go for what they were used to. So interesting that the factory guys for the Grand Prix are going to opt for those brand new, slightly bigger rear wings.
Thanks as always, Jack. Good spot there down in pit lane. We'll keep a close eye then on the progress of both Acosta and Brad Binder. Here is Joan Mir, and as we mentioned, excellent when the luck has gone his way and he's been able to avoid troubles and dramas on the factory Honda. He's been pretty impressive and pretty fast of late. 6 over the line in the Grand Prix last weekend in Spielberg. That was only his 2nd Grand Prix top 6. He's 47 for Honda, his first on a Sunday since India in 2023, and he's backed it up. He's got some momentum. First sprint top 6 on an RC213V here yesterday. As we got a quick glimpse there of the vast Lake Balaton, one of the biggest lakes in Central Europe. Water sport lovers' paradise out there. There's been sailing, surfing, swimming, you name it. It's been happening on Lake Balaton this weekend. It's certainly one of Hungary's top holiday hotspots. Nobody hotter right now though than Marc Marquez in the MotoGP World Championship as the riders filter out of pit lane as Marc chases his 7th successive victory, a 7th consecutive double. Can anybody lay a glove on 93?
It certainly has been plain sailing for him so far in 2025, right from the opening Saturday of the season in Buriram when he opened his account on Ducati debut with a maximum 12 World Championship points. He's only lost 1 sprint since then, and that was when he fought his brother home at Silverstone, the only weekend this year where we've not seen Marc Marquez take victory either on a Saturday or on a Sunday. He's already got his 13th sprint win to his name this season in 2025. And with his major opposition, you feel, on pure pace back on the 3rd row of the grid, Marc Marquez will be laser focused on just getting the perfect start, getting himself around turn 1, staying out of any melees in those early stages. But we have seen already, without spoiling in too much from Moto3 and Moto2, that you can make overtakes around this Balaton Park circuit. It certainly isn't easy to pass around here, but potentially some drama might fall away in the latter stages if riders begin to run out of tyres, and that certainly appears to be the case in the 2 races we've seen already today. Some riders on the absolute edge of grip in the latter stages, so Marc Marquez might look like the overwhelming favourite, and of course he is, but there are 26 laps of hard work still to come before he can claim a 7th consecutive double.
double MotoGP world champion, Pecco Bagnaia, just taking advantage of a run through pit lane. He had a poor morning water session. Let's be frankly honest, it's been a poor weekend by his exceptionally high standards. There is the proof. 84 points less than at the same stage in 2024. It's just all gone pear-shaped, hasn't it, for Pecco coming into this Michelin Grand Prix of Hungary. Halfway through round 14, 209 points behind his teammate Marc Marquez, at 57 behind Alex in the battle for second place right now in the championship. Well, as we mentioned, recent upgrades really are starting to steer HRC back towards the front of Grand Prix racing, back to where they feel they'll belong. A double top six in the sprint yesterday for Marini and Mir. Can they match it this afternoon? Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Alberto Puig.
Alberto, what a really positive weekend it's been so far for Honda. Double top six yesterday, great result for Luca in particular. Just how pleased are you with the obvious progress that's been on show?
Well, it's been good since Friday. Both riders are trying maximum. They are making a big effort. And we are also trying to improve, as we said in Sepang in February, you know, that after the break we expected some catch-up or improvement. And yeah, we are slowly getting there, and yeah, we are happy. I mean, Honda's working very hard, and the guys are working in the teams really, really hard. And the riders are, yeah, doing maximum. So this is what normally all the professionals teams do. They try everything they have and possible can to get the result.
We can see last time out in Austria the new aerodynamics package, new chassis as well. How much of a step has that allowed the bike to take?
I would say that we cannot just say it's this or that. I mean, also to be fair, to be honest, this track suits quite well the Honda character, you know. It's a track where you change the direction a lot, and in this type of tracks, if you see the history, Honda has always been strong. But yeah, I mean, of course we are progressing. We are trying new things, new aero, new chassis, swing. I mean, we are trying to do all we can, and yeah, things are slowly getting there.
Just finally on Luca, after that big crash in Suzuka, the way he's been able to bounce back, the result in Germany, and then backing it up yesterday as well. What does that say about his character?
Well, he's a very calm guy. He makes steps in a very precise way, and I've never seen him nervous. So he understood his injury. At some point it was a little bit not nice, let's say. He understood, he stood calm, he recovered, he came back, he took his time, and I can say that he's a really, really smart guy and cool, and yeah, now he's improved his level clearly. So yeah, let's hope he can today be a little bit lucky and turn one like all of them, and see if he can do it.
Thanks, Alberto. Have a good race.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Honda boss Alberto Puig as we're just running through the grid. This, of course, could change. This is the initial information we have received from Michelin, our official tyre supplier. At the moment, and I stress at the moment, Marc Marquez is the only rider on the front row. The information we have right now is on the medium front, medium rear tyre. Both Marco Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio, as it stands right now, with 20 minutes or so to lights out, they are medium front, soft rear tyre. That could change.
Quartararo, another rider we saw there with the medium rear tyre. So too Luca Marini, Pecco Bagnaia, also on the medium rear tyre. He's coming from 13th place on the grid. Of course, temperatures aren't exactly scorching hot, but we are bathed in beautiful sunshine here at Balaton Park. Still a decent gust of wind that has caused one or two problems as we've gone through the weekend, and what is quite a wide open circuit, and of course being so close to quite a large body of water, you do tend to see the wind pick up in these sorts of areas, but it feels like it's going to take a serious following wind for the competition to chase down Marc Marquez today.
That looks like a very pleasant afternoon on the boat, doesn't it, in the middle of the vast Lake Balaton. And when we say vast, we mean vast. A shoreline apparently of near on 200 kilometres. At its widest point, it's 9 kilometres. It's a pretty impressive body of water which neighbours this Balaton Park circuit. As we gear up then, and the countdown continues towards the first Hungarian Grand Prix in over 3 decades. You just saw there on the graphic Marco Bezzecchi. The last time we ventured out onto pastures new in India, he was the victor on that occasion. Then, of course, he was on the VR46 Ducati. He did it in some dominant style as well, did Bez, pole position, and he absolutely destroyed the field in the Grand Prix of India to win by over 8 seconds. Bez at the checkered flag in the sprint yesterday, 7th. Of course, after he had to take avoiding action of all the drama unfolding on his inside as Quattararo came charging through and clipped Enea Bastianini.
And yeah, that run to turn 1, you feel is going to have such a big bearing on what we see in this Grand Prix today. And will Fabio Di Giannantonio and Marco Bezzecchi on the front of the grid alongside Marc Marquez, will they have perhaps a slight advantage off the line with that soft rear tyre on, just getting the Ducati and the Aprilia respectively hooked up off the line, and that blast down to turn 1, is that potentially an opportunity for them to see some early track position on Marc Marquez? Marc Marquez clearly so confident in terms of his prospects today. Digia then from the front row starting third, and Jack's got an update on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Fabio Di Giannantonio's bike might just have a bit of a technical problem on the grid here, because the laptop is out, it's plugged in. There are 3 or 4 different electronic engineers just trying to look at it, including 2 from the factory team themselves. So clearly something isn't right for Digia here. I tried to grab a word with Pablo Nieto, who went to check with some of the FIM staff, I imagine, on what the rules precisely are in case they have to take Digia's bike off the grid here. I'm hoping to try grab a word with Pablo in a second once he's free, but something just isn't right for Digia.
Well, the pit lane exit is now closed, so if they do push Digia's bike off the grid at this stage, he won't be allowed to leave the pit lane until they start the warm-up lap, which will see him take a double long lap penalty and start from his grid position. So they do have a little bit of time. They've got around about 10 minutes or so. Let's get the very latest from VR46. Pablo Nieto's with Jack.
Pablo, it looks like there's a problem for Fabio here. Just bring us up to speed. What's happening?
Yeah, we are checking everything what's happened, because he feels something strange in the lap to go into the grid.
You were just checking with the rules, I imagine. Is there a possibility he has to come off the grid?
Of course, but you will have a penalty, so we have to check everything to try to start from here.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.
Crikey, as if there's not enough high pressure around in these intense moments as we count down towards the start of this Grand Prix. Let's hope, as far as VR46 Racing, Ducati and in particular Fabio Di Giannantonio are concerned, that they can rectify whatever that issue was he felt on the sighting lap. We were just talking, weren't we, not that long ago, about how tough his recent Sundays have been. He's gone pointless in the last 3, his worst runs since 2022. He won't want to be making it 4 successive Grand Prix without a point through no fault of his own. So yeah, a bit of drama then on the back of the front row of the grid,
Which Marc Marquez will be blissfully unaware of as he strides back onto the grid, having sat in his Ducati box for a few minutes just for a bit of peace, quiet and sanctuary, staying away from the hustle and bustle and the many people that you can see from overhead on the grid. Pedro Acosta has done the same, and he now walks back onto the grid and of course has to walk over to the 3rd row of the grid to find his KTM. And will he take perhaps a different approach at the start? Will he prefer to be up on the inside down to turn 1? He might not have a choice, but clearly being on the outside into turn 1 yesterday was the worst place to be. That was where all the chaos ended up.
Been an eventful weekend for Acosta. 3 falls, although he has not finished outside the top 4 in the last 2 in Renault and the Red Bull Ring. That impressive recent run was halted abruptly by the crash in the sprint yesterday. And now keep an eye on Fermin Aldeguer's late race pace, because it was sensational, wasn't it, last weekend in Austria. Alex Marquez coming from 14th on the grid after his grid penalty. What are the prospects for the Grazzini boys? Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Michele Massini.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be more than a few eyes on the number 54 on this one, Michele, after what he was able to do last weekend in Austria with a penalty for Fabio and Enea. It looks like potentially an issue for Digia on the grid as well. This presents a big opportunity again for Fermin.
I think yes, because we shown also another big step, another improvement this morning during the warm-up. So we will try, of course, first of all, to try to gain some position at the beginning, because we know that the pace is very, very good.
That's Digia's bike, by the way, in the background, that they're just warming up to try and test that electronic problem. On Alex as well, obviously a massive challenge from back there on the 5th row of the grid. How much is it just about seeing the checkered flag and then moving on to Barcelona?
Yeah, it will be very difficult, so we will see if at the end we can gain some position, try at least to finish at least in the 8th position or better, because we have the speed, but you know it is a very tight and difficult circuit to overtake the other riders, so we will see.
Thanks, Michele.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Michele. We can hear in the background there, they're firing into life, aren't they? Fabio Di Giannantonio as a caddy, to see if they have successfully diagnosed this issue. The Giannantonio, clearly you can see he's hopped off of that GP25 just to get some shade and just let his mechanics, let his crew, let the Ducati engineers go about their work in trying to make sure that those issues that he felt on the sighting lap are rectified. Let's just hope that Diggio is going to be able to start this 26-lap race from that front row. You won't see him on the grid at the moment. He's just sort of sat close to where the factory Ducati pit canopy is. Alberto Puig, well, he would have been seriously impressed with Luca Marini's display in the sprint yesterday, and that Puig there, well, he's been there, done it and seen it as a rider and a team manager, hasn't he, for so many years. Just some final instructions going from Puig to Marini. This is MotoGP Technical Director Danny Aldridge in the blue shirt there, just having a long chat with VR46 Racing boss Pablo Nieto. I think he was just seeking clarification on the rules there, wasn't he? If we move the bike off the grid, Danny, what happens next?
2 long lap penalties will be he'll still be able to start from his grid position. He will leave the pit lane at the end of the warm-up, or the end of the start of the warm-up lap, join the grid, start from the front row of the grid, but take 2 long lap penalties. That is if his bike leaves the grid. Of course, if his bike doesn't leave the grid, he won't have to. Let's listen in. I think they're giving Di Giannantonio the choice there, aren't they? Which of the 2 would you rather do, Diggio?
What a nightmare. What a nightmare situation as far as Fabio Di Giannantonio is concerned. Let's go straight back down to Jack on the grid.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in what you were saying. Pablo Nieto was just giving the 2 options to Diggio. He explained the 2 options to Uccio as well, saying, what do we want to do, guys? We either wheel this bike off the grids now and take the safe bet that we can't fix this problem, we just go onto a bike that we know will work, or we do the warm-up lap, we check if it's okay, and then if it's not right, we have to change on the warm-up lap and we come down pit lane. It looks as though the VR46 team are prepared for either alternative.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks very much, Jack. All about just keeping his cool and keeping his composure right now, isn't it, for Fabio Di Giannantonio? Worst possible scenario, isn't it, going into a high-pressure situation like the build-up to a MotoGP race is. We're going to be keeping a very close eye on number 49. Don't worry, Jack down in pit lane and all of us in the commentary box as well. Fermin Aldeguer then, 5th over the line in the sprint yesterday. Threatened, didn't he? Threatened 4th, maybe better, but just could not find a way through on the late-breaking factory Honda of Luca Marini. Another top 6 finish though for Aldeguer. That's his 6th sprint top 6 of the season so far, as the debate and the choices and the decisions, well, they have to be taken very soon, don't they? Di Giannantonio just gives a little bit of a nod to one of his VR46 crew. Oh, what a nightmare. What a nightmare. We're going to take a pause though now for the national anthem conducted by the Hungarian Air Force Band. Hungarian Air Force Band conducts. First time we've heard the Hungarian national anthem at a Grand Prix in Hungary since 1992. Here comes the Hungarian flag being dropped onto the circuit. Let's go quickly though back down to Jack for the latest Digia drama.
Yeah, Pablo Nieto just explaining to Danny Aldridge what the plan is. The laptop has been unplugged, the race tyres have gone into this bike on the grid. There's a little bit of confidence they might have been able to solve it, but he is just informing to Digia that if the problem still persists on the warm-up lap, the second bike will be ready to go.
Thanks, Jack. So Fabio Di Giannantonio, we hope, will start from the front row of the grid, but he might yet have to start this Grand Prix from the pit lane. We will be watching him very, very closely as he goes round on the warm-up lap. The warm-up lap begins, by the way, in 6 minutes' time, so they really are running it up to the wire down at VR46. And how difficult is it going to be, whatever happens here, for Fabio Di Giannantonio to keep his head clear and just focus on the job at hand? There must be so many thoughts and so many concerns going through his mind right now. He sits back on top, his number 49, his VR46 Ducati, which he took to second place in the Tissot Sprint yesterday. Uccio Salucci there with a little handshake just to try and keep Fabio Di Giannantonio calm, but this was him on his way to the grid.
Yeah, clearly, Di Giannantonio, who's looking relatively cool and relaxed there, is his spare bike, should he require it for this 26-lap Grand Prix of Hungary. But it was a touring sighting lap, wasn't it, from Digi when he identified there was a potential issue. Let's go and get the thoughts of Prix boss Paolo Bonora. Marco Bezzecchi on the front row, looking to continue his recent purple patch form. And Jorge Martin in the sprint points finishes for the first time yesterday. Well, what can the brilliant duo do, Jack?
Paolo, I'm sure Marco's first plan is just to avoid any problems at turn one like yesterday. And in terms of tyre choice, just talk us through the decision that you've had to make.
Yeah, you are right. The corner one is the most critical point of the circuit, in particular during the launch. So it's necessary to take with in a very good way that corner and stay out of any problem, because we show a very good race pace, and we hope during today with a different temperature on the tarmac that we can see different behavior of the race. And we hope also that Jorge, after the positive comment of this morning, that show a good race pace as well.
Thanks, Paolo. Good luck. Thanks.
Yeah, that's an excellent point made by Paolo Bonora. Jorge Martin was third fastest in this morning's warm-up session. So we're keeping a close eye on the Martinator, trying to work his way through the pack. Marco Bezzecchi, victorious, of course, in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. He's followed that up recently with 3 podiums in his last 4 Grand Prix starts, in Assen, in Brno, and in the Red Bull Ring. Well, on all 3 occasions, he posed a pretty big threat to the domination of Marc Marquez. He was doing so also as well in the Saxon Ring, wasn't he, when he crashed out of second place, as did Fabio Di Giannantonio. Danny Aldridge, MotoGP technical director there, once again locked in some pretty in-depth discussions with VR46 boss Pablo Nieto. How do you just... I'm trying to get your mind on the job, get your focus in the zone. Must be really tough right now for Fabio Di Giannantonio, unsure of which motorcycle is going to be starting this Grand Prix and where he's going to be starting it from.
Well, he'll have to make a clear decision before he comes to the grid. He doesn't want to be in any kind of indecision. If you're going to come to the grid, you're stuck with that bike now until the end of the Grand Prix. And of course, if that bike's not running properly, that end could come rather soon once the race gets underway. So Fabio Di Giannantonio, of course, would want to do everything to start from third on the grid, having qualified so well and finished the sprint in second place yesterday.
MotoGP is going to roar into life here in Balaton Park. Will that front row shortly feature Fabio Di Giannantonio with all of his pre-race technical issues? A big headache for Digia. Third on the grid. Second place, second fastest in Q2, Marco Bezzecchi, winner of our last first-time MotoGP battle over in India at the end of 2023. But looking to complete a magnificent 7th successive double victory from pole is Marc Marquez. MotoGP World Championship is in its 76th year. And for the 75th time, we come to a different Grand Prix venue. We are in Hungary. We are at the Balaton Park circuit for our first race action in this part of Central Europe in 33 long years, where a Hungarian crowd are expectant to see if Marc Marquez can extend this incredible, undefeated recent run. 7 sprint wins in a row, 6 Grand Prix wins in a row, 13 on the spin for the runaway world championship leader. And he will start this 26th lap Michelin Grand Prix of Hungary from pole position, the 102nd pole of Marc's Grand Prix career. On the warm-up lap, at least the riders have made it safely through turns 1 and 2. It's going to be all eyes on that tricky first sector after the early drama yesterday involving Fabio Quartararo, who, just a reminder, has a long lap penalty to serve in this Grand Prix after his contact with Enea Bastianini in that first corner. Enea himself, well, he has a double long lap penalty coming his way in this Grand Prix of Hungary after he clattered into the back of LCR Honda rider Johann Zarco. 152 points already is the massive World Championship lead that Marc Marquez has built, as we keep a close eye on Fabio Di Giannantonio for a very good reason. If you've been with us throughout the whole of our race build-up, well, Di Giannantonio and his VR46 Ducati crew, they have been frantically working on his GP25 after he identified an issue. There was a warning light came up on his dashboard on the sighting lap, and that has seen doubts about Fabio Di Giannantonio ahead of this Grand Prix. Clearly they're warming up the second bike. I think that's in anticipation of whether he is ready or wants to or requires to come into pit lane to swap bikes.
Yeah, Fabio Di Giannantonio, I would assume, hasn't already made that decision before he left the grid. The team will have obviously given him the option. If you go to the grid, then you have to stick with the bike that you're on. But if you do not think that this bike is good to go, come straight up pit lane. Yeah. He is coming up pit lane.
He put his left flag out there. He was signalling to the riders behind him. He dropped all the way to the back of the field. So this is massive pre-race drama as far as Pertamina and Enduro 46 Racing are concerned. And poor old Fabio Di Giannantonio, he is going to hop onto the second bike. He's going to start this Grand Prix of Hungary from pit lane. We have a vacant space then now on the front row, sadly missing Di Giannantonio, who should have been starting in P3.
One bike straight onto the other. He will have to wait for a green light at the end of pit lane before he can go.
We've got the green flag clearing at the back then. Pre-race drama here in Hungary. Di Giannantonio off the front row. But we're lights out and racing then here in MotoGP in Hungary for the first time in 33 years. Marco Bezzecchi is going to try and be aggressive on the inside of Marc Marquez into that first corner. They all concertina up. Are they all safely through? There's a bit of bumping and barging, but they have all made it safely through. And Bez and Marc
into it.
Big contact there. Bezzecchi had snatched the lead on that tight run through turn 2. There's contact there between 72 and 93.
Marc Marquez back to third place then, so we do have a VR46 Ducati in second place, but it is Frankie Morbidelli. Then it is Marc Marquez in third. Morbidelli fourth, but look at the KTM's attacking. Acosta and Bastianini going either side of Marini.
It was aggressive early on by Bastianini. So Marc Marquez, he made the dream start, didn't he, in the sprint? Yes, they avoided all the early trouble going through turn 1. He made a really good start, though, again here today, but he's back in third place after the early rub with Bez.
Pecco Bagnaia is up to 7th place already, although that might become 8th now. Here comes Aldeguer up the inside, but Marco Bezzecchi, if you want an opportunity to win this Hungarian Grand Prix, get your head down and go for it, because he's got an advantage, and he's got Frankie Morbidelli between himself and Marc Marquez.
Straight away as well, Jorge Martin's been dynamite off the line. He's already up inside the top 10 as well. A 9th place halfway around this opening lap. Bastianini's gone down, and that was awful. You could see him look to his left-hand side. He knew he was going to come careering back onto the racing line. He had his heart in his mouth. And of course, the bad news for Enea is he's not going to serve the double on that penalty penalty unless he can remount, which will then carry on over into the Catalan Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's got to get up and running and just serve those penalties, so he's out of the way. Martin's also passed Bagnaia. Of course, they were dodging Bastianini's KTM, but Bezzecchi's lead is 0.4 of a second over Morbidelli. Marc Marquez third, and what a start for Pedro Acosta, just what he would have hoped for on this first lap. Acosta already up into P4.
Oh, that was a scary moment, wasn't it, for Bastianini and all those riders who somehow threaded their bike through the eye of a needle.
Someone's up to Alex Marquez. Alex Marquez is on the floor. He's gone down at turn one. Of course, he's also got a point. Served a penalty off the grid. And of course, having made no real progress on that first lap, he was still back in 13th. Alex Marquez down at turn one.
Into the first corner he goes. Didn't come out the other side of it. Marc Marquez, MotoGP World Champion in Misano. Anybody that's going to be potentially what we could be facing in just a couple of rounds' time. Let's go down to Jack for a Bez update.
Yeah, importantly, the team told him plus 0.5 Morbidelli, so Bezzecchi knows that Marc Marquez isn't behind him, and he's got a massive opportunity here if he can get into his rhythm early.
Yeah, motor on, that's the message clearly then to Bez. Thanks very much, Jack. Further down the field, we've got Marini on course for back-to-back top sixes. Fabio Quartararo, of course, who has to serve a long lap penalty. And Bastianini, I've not seen anything that's notified us that he has rejoined this Grand Prix, so a real tough weekend for the Beast. Out on the first lap of the sprint and slamming into the back of Joan Zarco, and out on the first lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, he didn't come round at the end of the first lap. The last rider that did come round, of course, is Fabio Di Gianantonio, and poor Digia. He is 10 seconds off the back of the field and 15 off the race lead.
This is going to be the early contact involving Marco Bezzecchi and the pole starter Marc Marquez on board with the 72 Aprilia then of Bez. Morbidelli was aggressive on the inside, wasn't he? That's pushed Acosta wide, and then already Bezzecchi got his way through, hadn't he, on Marc, and then Marc just ploughed into the back of the factory Aprilia. And we're on board now with Morbidelli.
Oh, no gap there, Marc. You're not going to get through the inside of there, and in the end it cost him second place to Frankie Morbidelli. I'm surprised that Marc Marquez puts his nose in that kind of position, given the pace we know he has.
Yeah, Marini had to really check up directly behind the 93 bike as well. So Bez with Morbidelli acting as a bit of a barrier at the moment between him and Marc Marquez, and as Jack said, the team have already instructed Bez to crack on here, we'll try and make an early break, and he's doing it. A 1:38.484 is the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, about a tenth quicker than Morbidelli in second, 3/10 faster than Marc.
It's 0.8 of a second already through the next sector. Martin coming through on Luca Marini. That is for 6th place. Jorge Martin has already gained 10 places, and we're only halfway around the third lap.
Nobody told Jorge Martin that this Balaton Park circuit was notoriously hard to overtake on. This has been absolutely sensational work early on by Martin, already up into the top 6, streaking away quickly from Marini behind him. I don't know how much drama Joan Mir had early on with some of the probably with the Bastianini incident on lap 1, because Mir's down in 16th place at the moment. He lost a whole bunch of places. 6 in the sprint yesterday was Mir.
Alex Marquez did pick his bike up and continue just to try and score some points later on, as Frankie Morbidelli, rear tyre skipping out, stepping up off the ground as he tries to get his 21 bike stopped into turn 1. And he at the moment, of course, is racing for himself, but at the moment he's the best friend of Marco Bezzecchi.
Successive best laps of the Grand Prix so far for Bez, down now to a 1:38.190. I suppose the only sort of question mark, a big question mark that we might be posing as far as Bez is concerned later on in this Grand Prix, is how much early on, with this early onslaught, is he going to take potentially out of his soft rear tyre? The only rider right now in the top 4 that is not on the soft rear is World Championship leader Marc Marquez, and that surely will come to Marc and be a big advantage for him in the second half, latter stages of this Grand Prix.
Yellow flags have come out again. I think it's Ralph Fernandez's name that has just disappeared down the left-hand side of the screen. It's not been a great weekend in truth for the Trackhouse team. Joan Mir is down with Raul Fernandez, so both riders down, and let's hope that Joan Mir hasn't been involved in another incident that wasn't his fault. Quartararo through for the long lap penalty. Bagnaia and amongst others go through, and Quartararo rejoins up behind Jack Miller on the Pramac Yamaha, so that is 13th place.
He's like a trouble magnet, isn't he? Poor old Joan Mir. Was it his fault? Was it Fernandez's fault? Were they down in a separate instance? Raul Fernandez is trying to, well, he has remounted the Trackhouse Aprilia. Let's have a look at this one further back in the field.
Just separate accidents,
separate
don't they?
accidents.
They both go down together at the same corner, so certainly no one's fault but each other's for having their own accidents. You can see Mir already ready to thump the tarmac. Fastest lap of the Grand Prix for Marco Bezzecchi. 1:38.095. He's 3/10 quicker than Morbidelli, and the gap to Marc Marquez from Bez 1.2 seconds.
3 on the spin now for Bez in terms of fastest laps of this Grand Prix. He really is trying to make hay while the sun shining on that soft rear tyre, isn't he? Just to try and build a gap that he can then potentially stage manage in the second half of this Grand Prix. I don't think Mark's going to be panicking just at this stage. He will know. He will have been told by his Ducati crew that you're the only one at the moment that's on that medium rear tyre. Just let it come to you. Let's not take any risks early on. Just wait for that medium rear tyre to get up to temperature. Those guys that are pushing on the soft potentially may encounter some late grip issues. That's what he's going to be banking on. But first and foremost, though, he's going to find a way through on Morbidelli, and right on cue he does. Going into 8 and 9 then, and Marc Marquez then, and now he does start to think about honing in on Bezzecchi. Marc up to second.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't in the realms of panicking just yet, but a move he had to get done. He couldn't stay behind Morbidelli's Ducati for much longer if he could help it. So Marco Bezzecchi's initial breathing space amounted to around about 1.1 seconds over Marc Marquez, and Bez will now be getting the instruction on his pit board and on his dash. It's now 93 behind you.
Yeah, a side that he's seen on a regular basis of late, hasn't he? Marco Bezzecchi plus 0.93. Ralph Fernandez has pitted on the track out of brilliant. Likewise, Joan Mir, so they were both able to remount after their separate crashes on the last lap. A lot of stones on the track there, aren't they, as they came through turn 8 and 9. And as soon as Marc Marquez has worked his way through on Frankie Morbidelli, with clear air to work with ahead of him, a bit of open real estate ahead to Bezzecchi, a 1:37.994. He's dropped the pace instantly, in a flash. Marc finds the first 1:37 in this Grand Prix, wasting precious little time.
Down at turn 1 in
37.
4 laps ago, now
Wasting
7th place
from Bez.
Look at the field already. We've
1:30.
Marquez, a
completely dispensed with Morbidelli. Morbidelli's got bigger issues. It's coming from Pedro Acosta, who's trying to find a way through here into 8 and 9. Morbidelli just keeps the door slammed firmly shut. But this has been another excellent ride so far from Acosta. He's got so much time on his hands here. 20.5 laps to go. He admitted himself yesterday he ran out of a little bit more caution as he tries to get through on Morbidelli.
Acosta near enough matched Marc Marquez's lap time last time around. He did a 38.0, only half a tenth slower than Marc Marquez went, which is kind of backing up the theory we had on Friday, wasn't it? That it was Acosta with the pace to challenge Marc Marquez this weekend. So Acosta will now be wanting to try and get past Morbidelli quickly and hope that by the time he gets there, Bezzecchi is still holding Marc Marquez back.
Martin still in a stunning 6th place on the #1 liveried factory Aprilia. Marquez now getting quicker and quicker and quicker. 37.9 on lap 5, a 37.8 now on lap 6, and he's just gobbling up the ground to Bezzecchi directly ahead of him. Look at this now. What was an advantage that Bez had of over a second when Marc forced his way through on Morbidelli into second, that has just completely gone in the space of 2 laps.
You did see the briefest view there of Enea Bastianini. He has actually gone out back on track again, and I assume that is purely to serve his double long lap penalty. He does not want to have to carry that over to Barcelona in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, smart move that by the Tech 3 KTM team. Get that one done and dusted. Already this kind of has an air of inevitability about it, doesn't it? Because Marquez has made such light work of getting to Bezzecchi. Acosta has got through to 3rd place on Morbidelli, who just has not got the pace to go with the 2 ahead of him. Acosta then does move up into 3rd place. Can he do anything about getting his claws into the 2 directly ahead of him now on circuit?
Well, the gap between them is around about 1.7 seconds, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, so that's not going to be closed down quickly by Pedro Acosta. But how much longer is Marc Marquez going to be prepared to stare at the rear of Aprilia? Spent a lot of time looking at it last weekend, didn't he, in Austria? It took him until around about 2/3 distance before he finally shook off the challenge of Marco Bezzecchi. How long can Bez put up a resistance this time?
He has led laps in the last 3 Grand Prix weekends as Marco Bezzecchi, but he's looking really, really vulnerable right now on that factory Aprilia. So vulnerable that Marquez hits the front then for the first time. That wasn't going to work out. Marc just charging in that little bit too hot on the brakes into turn 1. Bezzecchi would have heard that move coming and thought, well, if you're braking that late, mate, when I'm braking as late as I am, you're only going to go one way, and that's to the curve on the outside. So it's Bez briefly then back at the front, but he knows it's coming. Marc's just said, you've had your fun, now it's time for me to take control of this Grand Prix. Now we go into turn 5. Marquez levels Bez once again in that heavy braking zone. Bezzecchi comes straight back on through. And listen to the crowd, they're on their feet. This is what Hungary fans have missed for so many years. That's twice then now on this lap 7. Lap 8 that we have seen Bez and Marquez exchange overtakes for the lead.
Shows how difficult it is, doesn't it? No matter how good you are, no matter how late you're able to brake, it is not easy to overtake. Particularly someone riding as well and braking as late. Seconds behind the top 2. Through the second sector, it's already down to 1.3. Give us a bit more of this and I might be able to join this battle.
Yeah, and Marc Marquez will be wary if he sees that gap coming down between himself and Acosta. He will know. He will just poured over the lap by lap analysis, and he'd have realised, he'd have recognised on Friday and Saturday morning that Acosta was certainly as good, if not better, on occasions around this Balaton Park circuit here this weekend. We're on now, 18 laps to go. It's Bezzecchi that is still leading. He's running that tight inside line through the curve. Through turn 1, there's no way through there now this time around for Marc. Through 2 now, this is where the two of them had the big contact on the very first lap, when it's fair to say that Marc got a little bit over ambitious on the inside.
So they were doing 38.4s and 38.5s, Bezzecchi and Marquez, while they were swapping the lead. Pedro Acosta did a 38.0 last time round, gained 4/10. Marc's not close enough this time to pull up alongside Marco Bezzecchi, and it wasn't exactly a lunge, was it? It wasn't exactly a dive bomb from Marc Marquez. It looked like he had it all under control, but Bezzecchi is braking as late as he dares, and Marc Marquez is already finding out, if I brake later than that, I can't make the corner.
What about our 3 most recent world champions? Martin getting the better of that trio. Martin 6, Bagnaia is in 8th. Quartararo, after his long lap penalty served for his hit on Bastianini at the first corner in the sprint, he's down in 11th place. Martin rather is almost 8/10 of a second back of Aldeguer. Aldeguer, who once again, as the grip starts to fade, as those tyres start to deteriorate, he is starting to find some serious pace, down to a 1:38.290 on that last lap. The only rider quicker out on circuit than Aldeguer was Acosta in 3rd.
Yeah, and Aldeguer will soon be zooming up to the rear tyre of Frankie Morbidelli for 4th place, and we've something learned now in MotoGP in 2025. Keep your eyes on Fermin Aldeguer in the latter stages of the race. He is so good at managing his rear tyre through a Grand Prix. So Marc Marquez has had that initial dart, hasn't he? He's had those 2 attempts a couple of laps ago to get through on Marco Bezzecchi. Now he's keeping a bit more of a watching brief, perhaps with thoughts of tyre pressure as we get into the heart of this Grand Prix, and also well aware that he has got a harder compound of rear tyre on his Ducati than Bezzecchi's Aprilia.
Yeah, just look at this. We're getting a face full right now. We are onboard camera of the 93. Bezzecchi will just be thinking, not him again. How many laps have I led in the last few Grand Prix where he's just had to come across line and see +0.93 on his pit board? You can just see, a bit like Martin did to Morbidelli, once he made the move through into 2nd place. Likewise now Acosta into 3rd. The Italian Morbidelli has had little in response as he sits in 4th place. In fact, Morbidelli's got some big trouble brewing behind him as well, because Aldeguer 3/10 faster on the previous lap. Aldeguer is dragging Martin along with him as well. 38.133 from Martin on that last lap. You know what, there's a top 5, maybe better here, top 4 as far as Martin concerned, which would feel like a win, considering where he's been so far in 2025.
It's further evidence of the steps forward that Aprilia are making with their RSGP in 2025. And Bezzecchi is riding so well at the front of the race. Marc Marquez, that wasn't a feint and an overtake. He was way too far back on the way into turns 15 and 16. But this is the kind of circuit where it's just all about joining the dots, hitting your braking markers, just tick off every apex. If you stay on the racing line and you're able to put clean laps together, it's so difficult to pass. But Marc Marquez got another very good run out of turn 17. Can he get up alongside and break late enough this time to get through on Marco Bezzecchi? Bezzecchi tries to cut back underneath it, but Marc Marquez now has the inside line for turn 2.
Yeah, he's blocked the line going initially through 1 and then through 2. So we are now lap 11 of 26, and it's Marc Marquez that has hit the front. You can just see there Acosta. He really is starting to hunt down Bezzecchi now in particular. You just wonder, Marquez has been seeing that gap reduced between himself and Acosta, and aware of how strong Acosta has been when he's been on 2 wheels so far this weekend. Mark's just thinking, well, I don't really want to be getting engaged or getting into any bother with Acosta. I know how fast he is, so now it's time to go head down mode. When is it for Marc Marquez? But he leads here in Hungary.
Yeah, will we see that just injection of pace once again from Marc Marquez and dropping of the lap times? Because of course once he passed Morbidelli, he got into second place. He was straight into the 37s, a little bit wide, but he's able to square the corner off out of turn 11, punch it out with the power of the Ducati GP25, and street clear again of Marco Bezzecchi. Bezzecchi's now in a similar position than he was a week ago. Of course he wants to try and go with Marc Marquez, who wouldn't, but he does have a looming threat behind him too.
Yet last time out in Spielberg, he did so much of the front running before he got passed by Marc Marquez, and then it was a young charger from Spain who did him for second place late on. On that occasion it was Aldeguer, but this time around it's Acosta who's also now looking to make history repeating itself as far as Bez is concerned. Straight away, having made the move right here in the first corner at the start of that last lap, Marc Marquez has just put 3/4 of a second into Bezzecchi.
It's Bezzecchi's lap time that I think will concern Aprilia. He did a 39.1 last time around and lost a whole chunk of time to Acosta. This was the crash for Bastianini, who's right behind Marc Marquez. A scary one as he's immediately looking up to his left-hand side, and the riders behind doing a very good job as Acosta cuts underneath. Fortunately, he cut that gap. You can see there it was Marini who was really delayed by that, as he had to go the long way round Enea Bastianini. He'll see it from Acosta's point of view. Marini goes over to the left as Bastianini is coming his way. A scary accident, which fortunately the Beast emerges from unscathed.
Yeah, the Beast raging here in Balaton as well. Not very often that you see Enea lose his rag like that, but he's incensed, isn't he? Out of absolutely nowhere, it has taken less than 2 laps for Marc Marquez to establish a lead over Bezzecchi of a second. Like we said a few laps ago, the mindset's obviously, you've had your fun, mate, at the front of this Grand Prix. Now I'll take over, thank you very much, and take it from here, because this already is looking rather ominous, you have to say. Again, through sector 3, Mark's found another 2/10s. It's up to 1.3 seconds, and there are more pressing matters for Bezzecchi to be dealing with, because he's only now 4/10s clear of Acosta in third.
Could he potentially also come under late threat like last weekend from Fermin Aldeguer? That looked a little unsettled, didn't it, for Frankie Morbidelli through the final corner. Marc Marquez has just put in a 1:37.6. He is 6/10 of a second quicker than Bezzecchi and half-second clear of anybody. He's the only rider in the 1:37s. He has the front of the race all to himself.
Yeah, Bez, a 1:38.3. 2 laps to build a lead of 1.5 seconds. You know, this is the creme de la creme, the elite of the elite, the best of the best, and at the moment Marc Marquez is just destroying the field. It's got to be soul destroying, has it, right now, to try and work out a way to beat Marc Marquez. I mean, really, this season the only person that's been capable of beating Marc is Marc himself. When he threw away a dead cert victory in Austin, he was firmly in early podium contention, wasn't he, at his home Grand Prix in Jerez, when he crashed out of contention. Since Silverstone, where he made a mistake early on before the red flags came out, since then something clicked in his brain. He was like, I'm not going to keep making these unforced errors. I'm not going to keep making these mistakes. And he hasn't since.
His teammate, though, has made a mistake, we understand. This is Pecco Bagnaia, who is running in 8th place. He's a second and a half adrift of Luca Marini, and Part of the reason he is so far behind is that, and of course he's having a good look behind to make sure he drops enough time so that he doesn't have to come through the long lap penalty loop, and that is why Binder and Pol Espargaro are right behind him.
Poor old Fabio Di Gianantonio out on his second VR46 Ducati GP25. He's just on a 38.302. Has Digia, which is comparable with your top three at this stage of the race. Frankie Morbidelli has just put in his best lap of the Grand Prix so far at 138.295. He needs it as well because there's pressure building big time behind him in the shape of Aldeguer, still doing low 138s.
I think Aldeguer's gone down. He has. That's the second Gresini Ducati to go down. I think that's down at turn 1. Alex Marquez crashed there earlier on in the Grand Prix through the final corner. We're not watching Aldeguer there. We're watching something much further back, but it looks like Aldeguer has gone down at turn 1. That's his teammate that you're looking at. Aldeguer did come across the line running in 5th place, and he got to turn 1, but no further.
Make it a day to forget for Gresini Racing as Aldeguer crashes out of 5th place. He was putting the pressure on Morbidelli. That now has pushed Martin up into 5th. Luca Marini now on course for a double top 6 after his 4th place heroics for Honda in the sprint yesterday.
Pecco Bagnaglia's weekend has got worse, believe it or not. Long lap penalty. He clearly did not lose enough time through that shortcut. He's running in 8th place, and that is about to become 9th as he serves the long lap penalty. His weekend cannot end soon enough.
Long lap penalty to what's been a long weekend, to what's been a long season right now, hasn't it, for poor old Pecco Bagnaia. Talk about getting kicked while he's down. This is the battle for second. Out of your picture and long gone up the road is your race leader Mark. 1.7 seconds clear now. Bezzecchi's going to have it all on, isn't he, to hold on to this second spot. It's Acosta behind him as they power out of turn 17. Over the line we go. 14 laps of 26 completed. Mark's now just, having done those 2 laps in the 37s, he's just eased off. That was the sort of 2 or 3 lap spurt that he felt he always had in his pocket. He's broken Bez, surely he's broken Acosta as well. It's just now Marc Marquez racing himself, just a test of his focus and his concentration, a test which he has not failed too often in 2025.
I think his teammate has now served his long lap penalty. Bagnaia did a 41.0, so the 3 seconds he dropped would tally with a long lap penalty unless he's been off the road again. But he's now back in 9th place ahead of Fabio Quartararo, who himself has had to serve a long lap penalty already in this Grand Prix.
Acosta then now all over the back of Bezzecchi. Just a quick reminder, of course, for all of you watching at home, you can vote for your rider of the race. Last weekend in Spielberg, after his late race heroics, it was quite rightly so. It was a good call by all of you watching at home. Firmin Aldeguer. Unfortunately, Aldeguer has crashed out of the top 6 here this afternoon. That mistake from Aldeguer, as mentioned, has put Martin up into 5th. Bad Binder now 7th. Pol Espargaro doing a brilliant job deputising for the injured. Maverick Vinales is 8th. Bagnaia 9th. Fabio Quartararo is 10th as Bezzecchi goes charging in hot then into that final chicane. That's going to cost him a lot of momentum now going through turn 17. Power on the factory Aprilia down the start-finish straight, but he's up against the fastest Grand Prix bike in history, Pedro Acosta's KTM. Acosta has the inside line now in the braking zone for the first corner. You feel like that was really Bezzecchi paying for the mistake he made going into turn 15 and 16. Acosta up in a second.
Yeah, moved at top place at turn 1, but really the damage was done 3 corners earlier when he went in hot to the chicane at 15. And Bezzecchi now, I think, needs to just batten down the hatches here. He's got a couple of seconds, 2.5 back to Frankie Morbidelli, who's running next up, just back of the picture in 4th place. We are still looking potentially at 3rd and 5th for the factory Aprilia team, with Martin closing in quite quickly actually behind Frankie Morbidelli. Outside of Marc Marquez and Brad Binder actually, who's doing 38.1s. Martin's as fast as anyone out there.
Yeah, that was Bez just in too hot, just trying to defend that second place with all of his might, and unfortunately it would have cost him the momentum through the remainder of that 4th sector. And then Acosta using just the brute power of the KTM down the start-finish straight to able to just ease through on the Italian on the inside, picking his way through the chicane, turns 9 and 10. It's all easy as you like, isn't it, at the moment, as far as number 93 and Marc Marquez is concerned. This looks like a breeze in Balaton towards a 7th successive double victory in 2025. Out of the final corner we go. Lap 16 in the box of 26 for Marc, 2.7 seconds clear. He is of Acosta. Jack Miller's gone down the road. Second time in this Grand Prix for the Aussie, who has had an up and down weekend to say the least. The ups, well, they look like being the retention of his Prima Yamaha seat in 2026. The downs, well, you've just seen one of them on screens there as Miller goes crashing through the long lap penalty loop at turn 11.
Tell you what, annoy Acosta. He's just done a 38.0, having cleared Benteke. He's not got too dissimilar pace to Marc Marquez. Well, yes, Marc Marquez has been able to do mid-37s when he feels like it, but Pedro Acosta's pace is not too far off the 93. If only he'd been able to qualify somewhere near the 93, we might have had a race of it between the two Spaniards, perhaps the current leading light from a Spanish point of view, and perhaps the rider that will take over when Marc Marquez finally retires from MotoGP. Acosta, I think, as much as he's been happy with second place, I think he's recognising already what a missed opportunity this weekend might have been.
There's been some real class rides further down this field. Certainly from Martin in 5th place. This is going to be his best on the factory Aprilia. Luca Marini on course for his first double top 6 on a factory Honda. And Alex Marquez, for sort of 3 or 4 races ago, he was pretty much telling the world's media that it was mission impossible to stop Marc Marquez clinching this year's MotoGP World Championship. Well, if there was any flicker, and I say a very small flicker of hope that Alex could topple Marc in 2025, I think finally we can say this is game over in terms of the championship. Marc potentially scoring 25 points for yet another win. It will be his 10th of the season. It's the 3rd time in his career in MotoGP. He's going to be in victory numbers in double figures, as it's a rather frustrated stomp, isn't it, for Jack Miller back to the rear of the Pramac Yamaha garage. And with the 1 point at the moment being collected by Alex Marquez, another 24-point swing in favour of Marc potentially in this Hungarian Grand Prix. We're going to be going. We're looking at Mazzano, aren't we, potentially? Maybe ambitious to think Mazzano will be where he clinched the World Championship, but the way things are going, the Japanese Grand Prix in Motegi, that will be where surely, if he stays as is, he's going to be World Champion in 2025.
I think at the very least he might go to Mazzano at this rate with a match point to win the championship, perhaps a far-fetched one. His lead as it stands in the World Championship, with Alex Marquez in 15th for 1 World Championship point, would be 176 points. He needs to leave Mazzano 222 clear to win the World Championship there. And given the way the season has gone in the last 3 or 4 Grand Prix, you cannot completely rule that out.
Yeah, it's a long shot, but this guy, anything can happen when he's out on circuit. Brad Binder, he's got some really good pace into, as we tip towards the sort of 2nd, 3rd of this Grand Prix. He's down to the low 138. It's good lap, that last lap on lap 17 for Binder, 138.237.
Bagnaia did a 38.2 as well, just behind, and that's why he's now riding behind Pol Espargaro. Espargaro losing some pace. He's doing 39s now. Let's see what he does over this line. 38.6 last time for Pol Espargaro, but he's now coming under big pressure from a beleaguered Pecco Bagnaia, who's just trying to salvage any crumb of comfort he can from this weekend. He's battling for 8th place. It's not what Pecco Bagnaia comes to MotoGP weekends for, but it's the best he can fight for today.
What about this? Music to the ears of Jorge Martin fans after an injury-ravaged 2025, where he had doubts about whether his career would be ended, whether he had the stomach for the fight. After multiple injuries, Martin at the moment has just fired in a 138.099. He's the fastest rider on circuit, half a second quicker than Marc, 4/10 faster than Pedro Acosta. Marco Bezzecchi doing another great job in 3rd place. Martin producing heroics though on the 2nd of those factory Aprilias. Let's get the thoughts of the boss Massimo Rivola.
Massimo, fastest man on track, Jorge Martin. How proud are you to see that right now?
Really quite impressive what he's doing. Let's see if he can do all the laps because you know, also from the physical point of view is tough, and this track is quite demanding. It's a bit of Mickey Mouse, and there's a lot of work to do when you ride this bike here, so super good job so far. Let's see if he finish in. But for sure, having the medium for him, I think it can be an advantage.
Well done, thank you.
Yeah, he's fastest rider out on circuit. Thanks, Jack, and thanks to Massimo Rivola. He did just make a mistake there, didn't he, at Martin, as he went into 12 and 13. But we'll let him off that one because he's been absolutely superb. 16th to 5th. And he's starting to close in here on a Frankie Morbidelli. It could get even better as far as the Martin age is concerned.
Well, an interesting point to bring into what we see in the remaining stages of this race. We talked about the tyre choices at the start of the Grand Prix. Marc Marquez on the medium rear tyre. Acosta, Bezzecchi and Morbidelli, second, third and fourth, are on the soft rear tyre. Martin is also on the medium rear. He's come from 16th place on the grid at a circuit that is notoriously difficult to overtake. Don't pay too much attention to that long lap penalty for Fermin Aldeguer because he's way at the back of the field anyway in 17th place. That will cost him nothing. But Jorge Martin, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he could still get onto the podium yet if he can pass Morbidelli quickly.
Faster on that last lap than Morbidelli in 4th, Martin in 5th. Not far shy of Marini 6th. Alex Rins on the factory Yamaha. He's down in 14th place at the moment, 2.5 seconds clear of Alex Marquez in 15th. Fabio Quartararo started the Grand Prix, of course, in 6th place, making sure he kept himself out of any first corner drama, unlike in the sprint yesterday. With the long lap penalty he has served, Fabio at the moment is in 10th on the Monster Energy Yamaha, second behind Bagnaia as it stands at the moment. Further down the order, this is 12th versus 13th. Joan Zarco has that 12th place. Just moving through your shot there is the 88 biker Miguel Oliveira, 11th at the moment for the Portuguese rider.
I mentioned Fermin Aldeguer and the long lap penalty, inconsequential really, but he's about to serve it. He's got amazing pace too. Had he not thrown his Ducati on the floor, Aldeguer just did a 1:37.9 at the back of the field last time around. So he's another rider that will be leaving Hungary thinking what might have been.
He's kicking sand in their face right now, Marc Marquez. He's back in the 37s on lap 20 of 26. Marquez has just delivered the knockout blow. That is it. A 1:37.843. It was never really in any doubt anyway, was it? But he's just now hammering home what was already a massive advantage. 4/10 faster on that last lap than Acosta, and now he's 3.3 seconds clear of the field. Only rider in the Grand Prix to do 37s. He has made it look easy once again.
Yeah, with the exception, as mentioned, of Aldeguer a moment ago, Jorge Martin has got a track limits warning that he has to pay a little bit of attention to in the remaining laps to come as he plots away past Frankie Morbidelli. But even if he does finish 5th from here, Jorge Martin to come from 16th on the grid to 5th place, something he will be figuring in your thoughts when you've cast your votes for rider of the race.
He's closing in here on Morbidelli on the Ducati GP24 spec. Well, Joan Zarco, he'll be battered and bruised after getting slammed into by Bastianini in the sprint yesterday. That's a big get off for Zarco's. Somewhat slowly and gingerly and a bit awkwardly stumbles away from the scene of the crime. This is him trying to hold off Fiagura for 12th place, and that is big. That's a real big crash for Zarco. Fastest crash you can have around this tight and technical Balaton Park circuit. So that's going to push Fabio Di Giannantonio now, after all of his pre-race tech gremlins, up into the point-scoring places.
Of course, Alex Marquez up to 2 World Championship points now in 14th place, although the damage was done to Alex Marquez's weekend on Friday when he got the 3-place grid penalty, but that wouldn't have been as big a problem had he qualified well. Qualified down in 11th place, which then became 14th on the grid for today's Grand Prix. And Alex Marquez has not been able to recover the damage.
Marquez back into the mid-138. It was almost like that lap 20 was, well, this is how fast I can go if I need to. Martin on the inside of Morbidelli. This is getting better and better and better, isn't it, for the reigning world champion, showing just why he's got that #1 plate on that factory Aprilia. Martin then now picks off Morbidelli and he's up into P4. What a day for the factory Aprilia team, 3rd and 4th as it stands right now.
A world champion's ride from Jorge Martin, make no mistake about that. He's probably going to have not enough time to chase down his teammate Marco Bezzecchi, who's running in third place. Bezzecchi's in the 39s though, so he might have to show a little bit more pace with his teammate coming at him in the latter stages. But from all the dark places that Jorge Martin has been so far this season, he is now back fully fit and showing us the class rider that we all knew he was.
Said all weekend, once this guy can qualify on that factory Aprilia, you better watch out, because there's no doubt about it. He has got the confidence coursing back through the veins, the belief, the trust is there with that RSGP. He's only going to get stronger as he gets more confident and crucially more experience on top of that Prix. He's missed so much seat time. 5,000-6,000 kilometres he is behind his rivals in terms of track time in 2025. He still says the one weakness, the one key area that he's missing is just that explosive one-lap pace that he was always so good at on the Pramac Ducati down the years. Well, once he finds that, there's no question he's going to be in the fight for the podium, if not better.
Of course, we head to Barcelona next, where Jorge Martin clinched the World Championship at the Solidarity Grand Prix at the end of last year. Some good memories on his return to Barcelona in a couple of weeks as Frankie Morbidelli continues to drop back towards the pack behind him. He's waved goodbye to fourth place. Jorge Martin has taken that and ran up the field with it. He's now under pressure from Marini and from Brad Binder, who is closing in on this pair too. Binder just behind Marini. You can see him there in the back of the picture, 5th, 6th and 7th.
He's been the top 6 so far this year for Luca Marini on his return from the Suzuka 8-hour nightmare at the Sachsen Ring in Germany. But he was 4th in the sprint yesterday. Of course, he knows Frankie Morbidelli exceptionally well. Fermin Aldeguer is going to be ruining big style his crash early on, isn't he? Because he's just set a 1:37.779. We know his strength, his big prowess, his pace on worn tyres. He's proving that once again. Problem for poor Aldeguer is he's 56 seconds behind Mark, 31 seconds almost behind the Gian Antonio. A big case of what might have been for the 54.
Yeah, 100%. He could have been in this battle for the podium as well. Let's check the lap times then. Martin only did take a 10th out of Bezzecchi last time around, so he's not closing in on that battle for the podium. Even if he did have the time to do it, he's not going to catch Bezzecchi from there. Morbidelli, though, back in the 39s, and that's why it's not just Marini that's behind him, but Binder has zoomed in behind them too, doing mid-38. So Morbidelli is coming under some serious late race pressure. 3 laps remain.
As soon as we saw this Balaton Park layout, as soon as we realised it was an anti-clockwise circuit, relatively stop and go, you always felt like the first rider that cropped into your head as a potential first winner in Hungary in over 30 years was Marc Marquez. He's about to join, as Binder goes in a little bit hot there, doesn't he, in 7th place. Our only 2 previous MotoGP winners in Hungary have been 2 of the best to ever do it. Mick Doohan in 1990, his first ever Grand Prix victories. Marini goes on the inside now, and Morbidelli, that's going to be close. You just knew that Morbidelli was going to lean on Marini there. He's cut the chicane, so he's going to have to lose that time.
Yeah, which I would assume would mean dropping behind Luca Marini again. I mean, I can understand why Morbidelli didn't want to give that one up, but Marini was fairly at the inside, and I think had every right to be given a bit of space there.
There's Matteo Flamini, crew chief to Frankie Morbidelli. Enjoyed some success most recently, of course, with Marco Bezzecchi. He was the data engineer for so many years with the GOAT Valentino Rossi. Yeah, Mick Doohan and Eddie Lawson, our only 2 Hungarian Grand Prix winners in the Premier class. And Marc Marquez, though, now less than 8 kilometres away from adding his name. This will be the 22nd different track that Marc Marquez has taken a victory in MotoGP. That's only 2 shy of the 24 held by Mick Doohan.
Surely this is a nailed-on long-lap penalty for Frankie Morbidelli. He's gone straight across the chicane, and look how far. Yeah, he's been told actually not to take a long lap, but to drop 1 position. So Frankie Morbidelli will have to slot in behind Luca Marini, but that's not particularly easy to do, given how close Brad Binder is behind.
He had that with Didier and Assen, didn't he, as well, at the chicane, where he was like, well, why? he toughed it out. He toughed it out with Simon Craig, the F1 MotoGP stewards, before I think Simon reasoned with him and talked sense into him. Martin then, at the moment, on course for 4th place, which, I mean, fourth isn't a win, obviously, but it's going to feel like a win, isn't it? As far as Jorge Martin is concerned, yeah. Morbidelli has got the message on his dash. He's going to drop in now behind the 10 bike of Marini. That was nicely done by Frankie, to be fair to him.
So Marini now up into 5th place. So all weekend this is shaping up to be for him on the factory Honda. A 4th and a 5th if he can get through this final lap and a half safely. And given where he's been too, we talk about Martin's injury issues. Of course, there's been some injury problems for Luca Marini to deal with over the course of this season too.
Marc Marquez in his best winning form since 2014. It looks nailed on that he is going to make it a 7th successive double win. He starts at the final lap, 3.2 seconds clear of Pedro Acosta. He in turn 2.7 seconds clear of Marco Bezzecchi. Looks like we're going to get 2 factory Aprilias inside the top 4 as Bagnaia goes on the inside of Polispargro on the brakes into the first corner. Bagnaia, after his long lap for a shortcut, looks like he's going to rescue an 8th place here.
Yeah, he's keeping on fighting. Pecco Bagnaia will always do that. He will fight until the finish, but we're closing in on the finish of the chase for the MotoGP World Championship in 2025. It's felt over for quite some time, but the coronation, the ribbons are being put on the trophy, to use a footballing analogy. Marc Marquez might just be 2 more Grand Prix weekends away from clinching what has felt like at times an impossibility of a 7th MotoGP World Championship. A 7th consecutive double takes him another step closer.
The doubles in Aragon, Mugello, Assen, Sachsenring, Brno and the Red Bull Ring. Make that another double. Mine's a double, says Marc Marquez here in Hungary, as he's about to complete yet another pole sprint Grand Prix victory route here. He's coming now into the final sector, nearly 4 seconds clear of Pedro Acosta. It has looked so smooth. It has looked so easy as he comes through the final corner now. It has been a breeze in Balaton for World Championship leader Marc Marquez, as he does win for a 7th successive Grand Prix. Extends his winning run. He's the second fully fighting Pedro Acosta on the factory KTM. Marco Bezzecchi, who made the early running here in Hungary, takes 3rd place. Another excellent top 3 for Bez. Jorge Martin, 16th to 4th. What a ride by the world champion. A double top 6 here in Balaton for Luca Marini. He's 4th in the sprint, 5th in the Grand Prix. Morbidelli takes 6. Binder, Polispargro, Bagnaia and Quattararo your top 10. Points for Agura, Oliveira, Rins. Alex Marquez 14th after his early fall at turn 1. Fabio Di Gianantonio, oh, your heart goes out to Digia. Should have been starting on the front row of the grid. Started from pit lane after some pre-race tech issues. He does pick up the final point on offer here in Hungary, but making his point, proving a big point once again, that there is nobody better right now in MotoGP than Marc Marquez. The 93 reigns supreme once again here. He won first MotoGP races in Austin in 2013 as Bagnaia runs wide in the battle for 8th place. On our first visit to Austin in 2013, our first visit to Termas in 2014, our first visit to Buriram in 2018. Your victor on those occasions was Marc Marquez, and on our first visit to Hungary, he has been superb. He has been brilliant in Balaton. Pole position, sprint victory, Grand Prix victory. He is unstoppable. Simple as that.
Not even contact on the first lap could derail the unstoppable Marc Marquez runaway train in 2025. What a star though Jorge Martin is, as we get ready to see him hand over the crown to Marc Marquez, which will come in the next 2 or 3 Grand Prix. Jorge Martin with a timely reminder, yeah, we're building, we're taking those steps forward, and he's getting ever closer to being back in the fight for victories once again. It will feel like one for Jorge Martin today, 16th to 4th.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, absolutely awesome. The 93, we are 93 grandstand here in Hungary rises to salute their master, their maestro, their hero, and at the moment a rider who is just steamrolling towards that 9th World Championship success. Pedro Acosta there, just acknowledging our camera operator Chow on the outside of turn 8. That's a lovely touch from Acosta after his second place. Let's get the thoughts of his crew chief, Paul Trevathan, who's with Jack.
Well, Paul, what a roller coaster weekend. He looked so strong on Friday, then the mistake on Saturday morning, but Pedro's really bounced back today.
Yeah, mate, we definitely made it hard for ourselves, you know. Yesterday, it's just great to put a weekend together and fulfill the promise, you know, and yeah, it's tough, it's difficult out there, and we knew the track would be difficult to pass, but how we rode today and timed the passing was fantastic.
A brilliant result, well done.
Yeah, really good result for Pedro Acosta, and yeah, who knows whether he'd qualified on the front row or not. It might still have been a second place, but certainly rode well to overcome that crash yesterday morning. From KTM's point of view, they're clearly taking steps closer as well, aren't they? Pedro Acosta has now been on the podium in 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix. His best result, of course, equal best in MotoGP. Paolo Bonora and the Aprilia crew salute their reigning world champion. Yeah, he is getting closer, he is getting stronger. And given that he's only ridden on that bike for 2 or 3 Grand Prix, a bike that at times he was quite keen to see the back of into next season, what a different story it is now for Jorge Martin, and you might not have to wait until 2026 to see him winning on board that factory Aprilia. He could be a serious threat to this man in the latter stage of this season, with some Grand Prix to come that Jorge Martin has been so strong at over the years. It's difficult to find any kind of weakness right now for this man. Marc Marquez with 7 consecutive doubles. From a century of Grand Prix wins across all classes. That is win number 98, is 72nd in MotoGP. And of course, across sprints and Grand Prix this season, that is now win number 23.
Yeah, 10 wins in Grand Prix in 2025. That's only the 14th time in MotoGP history that has happened. He was already in a very exclusive and elite club with Doohan, Rossi, Agostini, Bagnaia and Stoner. 3rd time he's made it into double figures in terms of wins in the Premier class. It's been an excellent day. It's been a superb Sunday, hasn't it, for the factory Aprilia team. Bezzecchi on the podium once again. Jorge Martin 16th to 4th. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Massimo Rivola.
Massimo, what a day that is for Aprilia. Just firstly on Bez, the momentum continues, 3rd in the World Championship, a real target now.
No. I think the target is to keep improving and to prepare next season in the best possible way. We have a target for Marco, clearly, but today we are double happy because we saw also the recovery of Jorge. We see Jorge, let's say, leaving what Marco did a few months ago, starting from behind and recovering a lot. So can't wait to see 2 Aprilia in the front.
Well done.
Thank you.
Don't think it will be too long before we are regularly seeing 2 Aprilias at the front. A top job by Marco Bezzecchi. That's 3 podiums in 3 successive races in MotoGP for the first time in his career. First time since his Moto2 days back in 2021. Getting a great reception on his return to the factory on the garage is Marini. He was only 0.8 of a second behind Martin at the checkered flag. 4th in the sprint, 5th in the Grand Prix for Marini. That's an outstanding weekend for him. Can't say the same, unfortunately, today for fellow Honda colleagues Zarco and Mir, who both crashed out. But it's win number 98 for Marc Marquez. And the records, well, they'll only keep tumbling, won't they? Fair to say, I think, that this, despite all of his success, all those brilliant runs back in 2014 and 2019 in particular, 2019 when he didn't finish lower than 2nd that season, this still does feel like we are seeing the best version of Marc Marquez. That was some early contact. This was the instant at turn 2 with Marco Bezzecchi. Marco Bezzecchi, Jack was telling us that he also lost some aero in this contact. Damage then to the right wing of Marc Marquez's factory Ducati. Here you can just see some rear aero getting damage on the back of Bez's factory Aprilia. That was about as close, though, as anybody really got to Mark in that Grand Prix. 3 successive podiums then in 2025 for the informed Marco Bezzecchi. Let's get it started, Jack.
Marco, huge congratulations. The run continues, the momentum continues. Third in the World Championship draws closer. Just talk us through how you felt in the race and that first lap contact with Mark. It looks as though you lost some aero. How much of an impact did that have?
Well, I don't know, honestly. I think that was a fantastic race. I did my best. I gave everything I had because, to be honest, my pace was not enough the whole weekend. I needed the extra grip from the soft in braking, so I risked with the soft, but for us maybe it was better the medium, but I didn't know if my speed could be the same or not, so I tried with the soft. I had to resist, but yeah, very happy overall with the result. Another good weekend, thanks to the boys in the box and also the boys at home, and I want to dedicate this third place to a dear friend of mine, Elios Campione. Buon compleanno.
Well done, great ride.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, it was a great ride from the 26-year-old Italian. Successive weekends, he's come through Q1, stuck it on the front row and scored a podium. That's that, just told you there, 3 consecutive MotoGP podiums for the first time in his career. He's taken the fight, at least at times, to the 93, isn't he, Marc Marquez. That is podium number 14 in MotoGP now for Marco Bezzecchi. And he is putting up a real strong fight for third, isn't he, in the standings. Only 31 points now behind Bagnaia. Game on between our MotoGP trash talkers. We're going to hear, though, very, very shortly from Red Bull Catering Factory Racing's Pedro Acosta. That's an excellent ride by Acosta after his, 7th podium finish. He had to do it the hard way from 7th on the grid, and he's talking to Jack.
Well, Pedro, you had to do it the hard way today from the 3rd row of the grid, but wow, your pace was phenomenal. Just how happy are you to be back onto the podium once again?
I mean, super nice. The weekend started quite okay on Friday, but then was becoming difficult, you know. But anyway, the team managed in a really nice way to bring me a new complete bike to really improve what we made yesterday in the sprint race. I just want to thank every of them because yesterday they was working until 2 a.m. in the morning to just bring 2 completely new bikes for this. I'm super proud of them. Also, I want to thank Carmelo Morales that was around here. Yesterday we was have a hard conversation, let's say, about my mistakes and how I was managing the emotion, let's say. And let's say today looks like I listened to him yesterday for this. I mean, I want to thank all KTM or Red Bull, him, also Danny that is watching from the TV, and all the guys that are trying to make the KTM project even better.
Brilliant ride, well done.
Thank you.
Well, after that massive crash at Q2 in turn 8 yesterday, his mechanics were burning the midnight oil up until 2 a.m. this morning. It was worth it, wasn't it? This was the move that Acosta made to get himself into the top 3 on Frankie Morbidelli, who eventually faded back to 6th place. And then it got better for Acosta. This was all because Marco Bezzecchi had got it a little bit wrong at the end of the previous lap in Sector 4, left himself susceptible to that move going into the first corner. Acosta duly obliged and took that 2nd place. This is a nice shot. This is post-race of him acknowledging our cameraman. Big smiles, big win here once again here in Balaton. He takes another massive step towards 2025 title glory. Your Hungarian Grand Prix winner Marc Marquez with Jack.
Mark, huge congratulations. That's the magnificent 7 in a row, but how close was it to disaster on that opening lap? Huge contract between yourself and Marco, and after that, I guess the tactics changed.
Yeah, on that first corner, when I saw that Marco was inside, just I released the brakes and go wide because I don't want to have any issue in that first corner. But then in the second one, I expect that he will do more corner speed. And in fact he kept the first gear and I touched him behind. Luckily for both of us, I was able to save the crash and he just continued his way. But from that point the race changed a bit. I was pushing that first laps, but then when I saw that the soft rear tire started to drop, I was with the medium. I started to attack and yeah, I had a super good, super nice rhythm. I was flowing on the track, so super happy.
Another brilliant win. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, and when Marc Marquez is in full flow, well, we know just how tough an opponent he is to beat. A different level, different league once again here today, and once again, quite rightly so, after another dominant weekend. He is your rider of the race. It is the 93, Marc Marquez. Bit of early drama, as he mentioned there, going through the first couple of corners, but from that moment onwards, I mean, come on, let's not kid ourselves. Was it ever really in any doubt?
Yeah, it's going to take a slightly bit more than a little iffy start for Marc Marquez, and some contact into turn 2 to deny him at the moment. The form he is in, sometimes you wonder whether he could start from the very back of the grid and still win Grand Prix with the form he is in. He does expect some challenges to come his way in the races that remain. Barcelona in a couple of weeks' time, which could potentially play into the hands of Aprilia. We know how strong they are around there. With the growing presence of Jorge Martin in 2025, there's a lot to be excited about from an Aprilia point of view. But this is the reference, this is the standard they all have to reach, and he is not going to stop around and wait for you.
14 rounds completed, 455 points collected by Marc Marquez. He's congratulated by Max Quiles and David Alonso, two riders who spent so much time behind the scenes training with Marc. He's their hero, he's their idol, he's their reference, he's the rider both want to be at some stage in the future. They've had pretty good days here as well in Hungary, to be fair to the two of them, without giving too much away. Marc Marquez then victorious for the 7th Grand Prix in succession, extending this record-breaking run as a factory Ducati rider. Second best winning streak of his career. Only 9 times in Premier Class history now there have been longer winning runs. The record is 20 for Giacomo Agostini in 1968, 1969. I mean, let's be honest, we won't be surprised actually if Marc got close.
He's got time
to that, given just his authority, his dominance over the field right now. It wasn't easy. It's never easy, is it, to win in MotoGP? It's just the fact that Marc is so good right now. He's making it look easy. As he said, when he got into his rhythm, once he was through on Bears, he was just in that flow. He was in that zone where, when he is, you can't beat him. That's as simple as that.
Ho fatto 20esimo stamattina.
Do 21 penso. Una media dietro.
Cazzo, entravo in ingresso.
Puttana, all'inizio ci siamo sportellati, eh? Sì. Qui ti ho visto e dico dai, dacci un freno e vado lungo, sennò aveva paura di tenerla dentro e... Che ha fatto un disastro qui.
Perché io ero lento alla 2.
Ho visto che non aspettava con il passo.
Anche tutti gli altri giri dopo la partenza non è che sono riuscito mai ad andare così tanto fuori.
No,
ecco, infatti ho sentito nel culo.
Sì. La facevi prima anche.
Sì.
È caduto? Come è caduto?
Secondo me è il cordone interno. Ma quando mi hai passato te, per sbaglio, per dare gas, sono rimasto col dito sul freno, proprio bloccato davanti, ormai ti centropiede.
Alla 10, no?
No, alla 1.
Ah! Si me enganchó, como sea. Aquí hemos perdido un segundo.
Sì, abbiamo fatto.
Ah, io secondo me abbiamo enganchato.
Cazzo, anch'io sono andato dritto qua. E mai passato subito dopo?
Sì.
Comunque era difficilissimo.
Ce l'ha buttato comunque? Ah, perché sicuramente non ha perso il... Ah, per il soltal, no? Sì. Bene. Com'era la soft alla fine?
No, disastro. Io quando mai passato te ho iniziato veramente a fare fatica molto.
La media era come nuova.
Io guarda, se in ingresso fosse andata bene l'avrei voluta usare anch'io, ma non mi trovavo.
poco, a poco.
So the top three then have processed initially what just unfolded over 26 laps here in our first Grand Prix of Hungary in nearly 35 years. The field trying to process just how on earth do you stop Marc Marquez in MotoGP right now as our podium celebrations get underway here at Balaton Park.
And it all is a familiar sight and sound to it, doesn't it, at the moment? Victory for Ducati and a podium for Aprilia. Marco Bezzecchi, who, as mentioned, extends his run to 3 in a row. And 4 in the last 5 now, with his second place back at Assen. Equaling the very best result of his MotoGP career so far. Pedro Acosta in second place. But if he wants to finally taste the maiden victory, he's got to beat this man, Marc Marquez, who can do no wrong right now. He can do nothing but win. He said before the Austrian Grand Prix weekend that he was obsessed with winning. But he is fulfilling that obsession big time right now. Congratulations then to Marco Bezzecchi, who takes his 14th MotoGP podium and 5th of the season. The Secretary of State for Sport and the Minister of Defence of Hungary, Adam Schmitz, is going to do the honours and present the winning constructor prize to Ducati before Bez gets his hands on the 3rd place trophy. I wouldn't say that it's all going perfect down at Ducati, with the next Ducati in 6th place today, and of course the problems well documented of Pecco Bagnaia this weekend, but they cannot stop winning. It's so much to smile about from an Aprilia point of view today. 3rd and 4th for Bezzecchi and Martin. Second place for Pedro Acosta then, and it is the Michelin Grand Prix of Hungary, so Piero Taramasso will present the 2nd place prize to Pedro Acosta. That's his 7th MotoGP podium. And as the FIM President George Viegas does the honours, the porcelain trophy, in line with the traditions of Hungary, goes to Marc Marquez. Draw ever near.
Seven races now completed. Marc Marquez has been victorious. 28 races, I should say. I was good at maths, was I? 28 races completed there in 2025, and Marc Marquez has been so good. That is his 10th win on 8 Sunday, and now it is just a matter of time, isn't it, before he is crowned 2025 MotoGP World Champion. He heads to home turf and to the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya next time out with a 175-point lead in the World Championship. Marco Bezzecchi takes a big gulp of hard-earned Prosecco. He is really starting to close in Pecco Bagnaia for 3rd overall in the standings, isn't he? Only what? 31 points back. Have I got that one right, Lewis, with my appalling maths?
31 points between Bagnaia and Bezzecchi.
I'll take that as a late win on a Sunday.
31 and closing between the two. As you say, Bezzecchi feels like he might well be the favourite for that one, the way it's going at the moment. And none of the numbers make pretty reading for Pecco Bagnaia right now. And that's a weekend for him to immediately erase from the memory and focus on the Grand Prix in a circuit that Pecco Bagnaia won at twice last year.
So 14 rounds in the books so far in 2025. And we say goodbye, Balaton Park. It has been great. We've really enjoyed our first visit to Hungary for the first time since 1992. Already confirmed, of course, on the provisional 2026 calendar that we are going to be back here next year. Marc Marquez will be most likely, more than likely, the reigning MotoGP World Champion. The factory Ducati rider just cannot stop winning, can he? An unbelievable run that started all the way back. Well, he hasn't been defeated since May the 25th, but it's August the 24th now. Such has been his dominance. He lifts aloft yet another race-winning trophy. He cracks open some more podium Prosecco for the 162nd time in his career, 123rd time in MotoGP. And it's home turf beckoning next for Marquez as we head back to Barcelona from Balaton to Barcelona, of course, the circuit where Jorge Martin won last year's MotoGP World Championship. Surely it's going to be the venue where Marc Marquez takes another giant stride to dethroning the Martinator in 2025. We look forward to your company next time out in Catalonia.
Marc Marquez then takes yet another victory. 23 for the season now for him. Pedro Acosta second and equals the best of his MotoGP career so far. Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin a 3-4 for Aprilia. Luca Marini completing a fine weekend, hitting fifth. Frankie Morgan.
It's lights out, racing in the sprint here.